Jai, Jai Jagannath, Jai Shri Radhe, and we are recording. And today, as I threatened last time already, I would like to talk about the Abrahamic religions, just to dispel a little bit of misconceptions, misinformation. So I have a lot of stuff from my records, my archives. So, and we have this Abraham guy. Yeah. And I was preparing some material to write on the subject, because it's very important that we don't misunderstand the facts and situations, because we can very easily be deceived and put in trouble if we don't understand what people are talking about, what they're doing, what they're saying. Like I remember sometimes it was coming up in our conversations that I think you mentioned that Christianity is all about love, God loves you and stuff like that. And I don't know, what is your information about Abrahamic religions? What do you know about Abrahamic religions?
Yeah, so Christianity and Islam are most widely
The most
accepted religion
famous.
in terms of numbers. Yeah, most famous these two, and
Yeah,
it started from Abraham. So Judaism was also all three: Judaism,
yeah,
Islam, and Christianity
yeah.
are all
Because
based on
they're all, yeah.
Abraham.
Why are they called Abrahamic?
Yeah, so their founder was Abraham.
Exactly.
In Islam, it is.
So there, all the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims recognize Abraham as their founder, the original prophet, the original founder. So they recognize, at least theoretically, they're a bit confused about this, but they have this idea. So if they recognize Ibrahim, that means that the pact, the God of Abraham, is supposed to be the same one for the Jews, for the Christians, and for the Muslims.
And I
Unfortunately,
think how this came about is
yeah,
since widely acceptance of Ibrahim was already there when on top of Judaism when Christianity became popular. So because of that, to have those people on their side that okay, we are not different, we are not telling you anything
no,
new. It
no,
is
no,
just
no, no. It's not because of that. It's because Jesus was a Jew.
okay.
It's not that Christians, Jesus came up. Jesus was not born in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
He was
No, no,
born
but
in,
what I'm trying to say is
yeah,
that when you want to preach something new, at least from Islam's perspective, we can say that since people already had acceptance of Abraham, so let's use his name and then you build your own thing on top of that. That okay, no, they are corrupt, we are good. I am telling you new and
uh,
better things than them.
well,
Something
in
of
a
that sort.
sense, yes. In a sense, yes. Yeah, yeah. This is correct. But yeah. So basically, what you're saying is that the God is the same, but the religion is different because each one of them believes that the others are wrong about the
Hmm.
actual God, which is supposed to be the same.
Yes. Yeah.
But when we talk about Christianity and Islam as carrying on the tradition, I mean the basis of Abrahamic faith, then we have to, the Christians need to accept what God said in the Bible, in the Old Testament, which they don't. Because the Jews are still following what is said in the Bible, in the Old Testament. And it's in the Bible. The Christian Bible also includes a number of chapters of books from the Jewish Bible, the Torah. So it's a kind of, contradiction, and not the only one, So if you think that they just wanted to keep Abraham, but they said they believed that the Jews were wrong, then why they keep the Old Testament in their Bible? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense. Because in fact, at the beginning of Christianity, there was a lot of controversy about this. And if you go and see today, Christianity has a lot of sects and groups who don't like each other. Have you heard about, do you know the difference between the Catholics, the Protestants, and the Orthodox?
I know only names, but what is it? I think some of them believe that Jesus himself was God. Some of them don't believe that. They just accept him as messenger.
No. That was the early Christians that were totally eliminated by slaughter. They were called heretics.
Oh, okay.
Like the Gnostics, so for example the Valentinians, the Marcionians, the Docetists, they were saying that Jesus is a great soul, is a great personality, but he's not God. Why? He never said he was God. And in fact, the teachers, the current, teachers, academic teachers of the early Christianity, and they agree, because the Bible that we know today is didn't exist until very recently. Like the most ancient copy of the Bible that is in Latin is in Hebrew, the Codex, I don't remember which one, is about from the year 1000 of the current era. About 1000 years ago only. And the only copy of the Septuaginta, which is the Greek version of the Old Testament that is supposed to have been written about 300 BC, is actually the copy transcribed by Origen in the 1st century of the current era. The most ancient texts we have are scattered, various scattered texts that are called the Dead Sea Scrolls. You heard about the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Qumran texts?
No.
That were dated, they have been dated around 150 BCE. Nothing earlier than that. In fact, there have been, in the last few years, there have been, some reports of archaeological excavations and findings at the island of Elephantine, the Elephantine Temple in South Egypt, High Egypt, near what you heard about the Aswan dike, the dam of Aswan. It's a big hydroelectrical project in Egypt, and it was built. The dike was has been built near the ancient waterfalls of the Nile River, and there is a very sacred place for them on the Elephantine Island, and there was a temple of Yahweh on the Elephantine Island in Egypt. It was established about 800 BCE and was abandoned about 400 BCE when the people, the Jews in Elephantine Island, were kicked out of Egypt. So the temple was abandoned. So they found a lot of old stuff like letters and notes in the Elephantine Temple, dating from around 800, 700 BCE to about 400 BCE. And in the Temple of Yahweh, nobody knew about Abraham, Moses, or David, or Solomon, or any of them. So it was a Zoroastrian temple. It was a polytheistic temple in which Yahweh was one of the Elohim. In fact, the Bible started to be compiled, written in 170, about 175 BCE, in the period of the Maccabees. And it was that version of the Bible was propagated by the Hasmonean dynasty that started the actual kingdom of Israel. But that was about 176, and it only lasted until for about 70 years, because in 60 BCE Palestine was annexed by the Roman Empire. So when postulating the idea that Jesus was an historical figure born around the year 0, the Bible and the Jewish religion, as more or less we know of it, had been existing only for about 150 years, and for 50 of those years it was in trouble. So the historical context is a little different from what people are taught in regular schools. So let's see this guy, the compilers of the Bible. This I wrote many years ago, so since then I found a lot of more information. So the compilers of the Bible, describes the rebellion of the Maccabees in 167 BCE actually constituted the nation of Israel, which composed the states of Judah, Samaria, Galilee, and Perea. And let's start with Abraham, because it's interesting to understand who is Yahweh, who is the God of Abraham. It's good to see what is written in the Bible. So we have, according to the Bible that is distributed by the Christians, a man called Abraham, who lived in the city of Ur in Sumer, received a message from God, who introduced himself by the name of Yahweh or Jehovah. The first contact of Yahweh with Abraham and his descendants, as described in the Bible, are so weird that we are authorized to doubt about the real identity and nature of this Yahweh. From the Bible, we understand that Abraham was chosen by Yahweh to start a new religion that would destroy all other religions and establish the supreme political power of his descendants over the entire earth. Subsequently, Abraham attacked the small city of Sodom with his servants and plundered it. We have, the references for the chapters and verses of the Bible. On the pretext of reclaiming his brother Lot, who lived there, and who returned to live there after being liberated by Abraham. Pleased by his activities, Yahweh proposes to Abraham a blood pact, strikingly similar to the one that, according to the Gospel, Satan will propose to Jesus by offering material wealth and benefits, specifically possessions and domination on all the land, in exchange for worship. The ritual requested to evoke Yahweh is described with horrible details. A number of animals were slaughtered and their dead bodies put on an altar. A heifer is a young cow, a she-goat, a ram, a turtle, a dove, and a pigeon. So the Bible says, when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. His God has arrived. To us, it seems more like a demoniac visitation than a godly being. And the conversation that follows is not less frightening. In fact, Yahweh starts by promising a lot of sufferings for Abraham's own descendants, including slavery, for 400 years. In alternative, they could offer to Yahweh the sufferings and blood of others, other people, or at least animals. We should remember here that demonic entities feed on blood and sufferings of others. The sign of the pact that all Abraham's descendants with Yahweh was genital mutilation, luckily dispensed with by most Christians but not by the Muslims. After this encounter, just the holy Abraham and 2 children, the firstborn Ismael was kicked out from Abraham's house into the desert to die, together with his wife, who was just a slave, because he was born before the child of the other wife, the actual wife, Sarah. The Muslims say that Arabs are the descendants of Ismael. When the legitimate son was born, Israel, also called Isaac, from the good wife, Sarah, Abraham was ordered to kill him on his God's altar. Yahweh wanted to make sure that Abraham was ready to kill anyone, including his only son born in his old age. And after savoring the tasty situation of pain, fear, and cruelty, when he had verified that Abraham had given up all signs of compassion, good sense, and humanity, Yahweh at the last moment suggested Abraham to slaughter an innocent animal instead of the child. So I think you know about the festival of slaughtering that the Muslims are having every year. I think it's called Idul Fitr, Idul Adha.
Idul Adha, I think. It's like, in general terms, it is called Bakri, where they
Bakri,
slaughter.
yes. Yeah. So, what you know what it is about?
Yeah, they say that it is sacrifice, somebody sacrificed something, and then I think whoever the story was, he sacrificed his son. So
Yeah, that
to
is
celebrate that,
Abraham. Yeah, this guy. Yeah.
yeah. So that's why they celebrate by, I think, just slaughtering an unknown animal. They just
Yeah, as
buy
many
it, slaughter
animals
it.
as possible.
Yeah.
Not just one. Yeah.
So they just want to eat it and they make excuses.
Okay. Okay. So then we have all the, the histories, the stories in the Bible about the chosen people of the descendants of Abraham that were led by Moses to the promised land, and people were already living there, called the Philistines, the Palestinians. So Yahweh told Moses and Joshua to kill all the people there, all the Palestinians there, and take the land for themselves, which is, I don't know, how godly does that sound? I mean, if God is all powerful, why doesn't He create a nice land where nobody's there? Or, already, maybe created already, some like desert. There are a lot of deserts in that area. Why? Yeah, by miraculous powers, turn the desert into a garden. Why does He have to order His worshippers to go and slaughter, to commit genocide, and people actually didn't do anything against them, just to grab their cities and lands and everything? Is the Bible moral? People are surprised that there is genocide. Abrahamic people commit genocide. Well, I don't know why they're surprised. It's right there. That same God commanded genocide. He commanded the Jews, commanded the Christians, commanded the Muslims to commit genocide. So who's right? Who's wrong? Now, the difference between Catholics and Orthodox and Protestants is simply political. Catholics were the official Christianity established by the Roman Emperor Constantine first in 330 something of the current era, and then actually Constantine just made Christianity the state religion. But Theodosius, around 30 years later, less than 50 years later, made Christianity the only permissible religion, declaring all other religions or non-religions as outlaw. So anyone who did not follow the state Christianity as per the Roman Emperor was a criminal, and therefore they should be killed. So Theodosius invented the concentration camps. More than 95%, estimated of course, of books were destroyed. Rome had 28 public libraries, plus all the private libraries. Sometimes they say, oh, in ancient times people were illiterate, they didn't know how to read. And not really. Just in Rome, before Constantine, there were 28 public libraries. What to speak of Alexandria? Alexandria, Egypt had the biggest library known in the world, the single most biggest library. And it is estimated that there were from 8 lakhs to 10 lakhs books, from 800,000 to 1 million books. Different, of course, not the same. So, but the Christians didn't like the idea that there were people who did not have to believe what they taught, their dogma. So anyone who didn't agree, anyone in any book who didn't agree with the official Christianity was destroyed. And this went on from about when in 500, around 500 of the current era, the Roman Empire ended. The Western Roman Empire ended because the new Christians, the Goths specifically, and the Visigoths and the Longobards came down to Italy and occupied Italy. They established the Longobard kingdoms, and the Roman emperor was deposed in Rome. But in Constantinople it went on until Constantinople was conquered by the Muslims. So in the year 1060 or 154, I don't remember exactly, the church, the Eastern Church of Constantinople, also called Byzantium, now Istanbul, separated itself from the Church of Rome and called itself the Orthodox Church. Orthodox means correct doctrine, because they didn't like how politicized the Church of Rome had become. And if you see the Orthodox Church, the difference is that they don't have a pope. They don't have a central authority. They have different churches, and each church has their own head, so that they're not. They don't have a central authority for the doctrine. And they say this is the correct doctrine, so that's why it's called Orthodox. So that was the great schism, the separation from the Orthodox Church from the Catholic Church. Then around the year 1500, there was another rebellion against the Pope and the Catholic Church, especially the Pope, because they were doing a lot of politics only. So the biggest leader of this rebellion, this reform movement, was called Martin Luther. You heard about Martin Luther?
Yeah.
Not Martin Luther King.
I know about Martin Luther King.
Yeah. That was the African American guy in the 60s, 1960s. No, the original Martin Luther was a Catholic priest monk actually, who was a German guy, who was sick and tired of all the nonsense of the Catholic Church. So he separated from the Catholic Church, from the Vatican, and famously said that Christianity should not have a central authority. Again, very much like the Orthodox Church. But the Protestant movement was even more radical. So you see, today there are so many Protestant denominations, unlimited. And they all agree that each person should directly read and study the Bible. So anyone has the right to read and study the Bible, which was not what the Catholic Church was saying. So until the 1960s, the Catholic Church prohibited people from reading, even having a Bible in their house. Only the priest could have the Bible. And the Bible was not to be translated into the common languages. It was only to be available in Greek or Latin. The Vulgate edition. In Latin is and still is the official language of the Vatican. All Catholic priests, they all have to learn Latin. They are much more serious with Latin than Hindus are with Sanskrit. And until 1960, all the prayers were still in Latin. Even people, they were taught to recite the prayers in Latin. I remember when I was a child, a small child, my mother taught me the prayers in Latin. She didn't understand the word, of course. And what to speak of me, because I was like 3 years old, what later could understand. But I still remember them. Then in the 1960s, 1970s, in the beginning of the 70s, the Catholic Church lost a lot of power, so they had to let it go. So they abolished the prohibition of reading the Bible, and they started having the Mass, the rituals in Italian. And in the other languages wherever they were, like in the United States, the Catholics, are praying in English. But until the 1970s, like 50 years ago? So, so the Protestants were persecuted in the beginning just because they were translating the Bible into their local language. They were burned at the stake as heretics because they just wanted to make the Bible available to people. In fact, the first printed book was in Germany, was the famous Bible printed by Gutenberg, right? And that was, a turning point also for the Christian religion, because everybody could have a Bible at that point. So there were lots of Bibles printed, translated and printed. So there are so many translations and editions of the Bible. I first found one very interesting professor in United States, Bart H. Ehrman, who just recently retired from public teaching because he was a teacher, professor at the University of North Carolina, United States. Now he's teaching privately. He has his own institute, but he doesn't have a. He retired from the job, from the government job, and he has written a lot of books, and he's giving courses, seminars, presentations, like that. And he used to be a very fanatical evangelist, Protestant Christian when he was young. Then he started to study very seriously. He went to study the ancient Greek and even the Hebrew and Aramaic, apart from the Latin, to study the original text. And now he's not a believer anymore. And he has not been a believer for many decades now. But still, he has been teaching in the North Carolina University, which is in the Bible Belt of the United States. He has been teaching about the origins of Christianity and about the New Testament especially, and the Bible in general. And when I found his presentations, that was really very interesting. They're still very interesting, but now I found even more interesting people, like, for example, Gad Barnea, who is a Jew, a Jewish professor of ancient history in Israel, and is teaching ancient history of Israel in a university in Israel. I don't remember in which city, I think Haifa, And he's incredible. He's so solid because he's an archaeologist as well. He goes around and goes directly from the archaeological evidence and does the translations of the original text and documents himself. And it's very interesting because now even the practically all the Jews who are teaching ancient history in Israel, they agree that the stories of the Bible are not history. There was never an Exodus. Moses never existed. So that's extremely interesting. I think that not many people were aware of these things. Only recently the awareness has become more widespread. In fact, these notes that I wrote, these were about 15 years ago, and before I heard about Bart Ehrman and Gad Barnea. I was consulting other writers, which there is a lot of material, making the connection between Buddhism and Christianity. So if you see, we have before Abraham, Jesus. I was compiling all these notes, and also some about Israel, about the Muslims. Then we have the history of the Russian Church, about inquisitions, abrahamics. Let me see. But yeah, this is the same. Yeah. I never put them all together properly because I never had really time to do that. But there is a lot of material that we can find. Like, yeah. So, yeah, this is the problem. Are there real Christians anywhere on the planet? This is interesting. Yeah, this is one posting that I put on Facebook. Many people protested one should not condemn all Christians. Yeah, 2010 I published it. Because of the sins of a few, that, by the way, consistently happen to be the official representatives and authorities of Christianity, not mere followers, and claim that there are many good Christians for whose sake one should not criticize Christianity. But what is Christianity? What is today presented as Christianity should be called Polyanity instead. Much of the undesirable teachings of Jesus were eliminated by the Church, by declaring them heresies and apocrypha. But still, in the canonic version of the Gospels, we can see how blatant and brazen the joke is. In Matthew 15:24, it is very clear the fact that Jesus was born a Jew and his preaching was destined to the Jews only. So this is a quote, "I am not sent but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." So, meant to correct the mistakes of their understanding about God, not to other people's. The idea of Christianity seeking to convert other people to its faith and to exert a political control over the world did not come from Jesus, who was totally contrary to those things, as we see from many quotes. Okay. Let us now make a brief list of the original teachings of Jesus that are still contained in the authorized Gospels. So MT stands for Matthew, MA for Mark, LA for Luke, GH for John. Like Matthew 15:24, only preach to Jews and never attempt to convert any other people from other faiths. Then Matthew 5:17, carefully and faithfully follow the Hebraic law, which was exactly what Paul didn't like. Then we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and lots of other quotes. Be completely non-violent even to aggressors. Everyone is a child of God, so people can show their love for God by loving one's neighbor, which is not exactly what they have been doing for 2,000 years. Anyway, be always peaceful, merciful, and just. Help others make peace. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 44. Do not accumulate material assets. Blah, 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 blah. Do not judge others. Blah, blah, blah. Give charity and lend money and goods to everyone without expecting anything in return. Okay. 2 verses in Luke chapter 6, verse 30 and 35. Strictly avoid hypocrisy and deceit, especially in the name of religion. Blah, 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 so many times. Spiritual life is a private matter and does not need official representatives or religious authorities. Blah, 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 blah. There is no need of animal sacrifices or temples or churches, because God only accepts love in the heart of his worshipper or in the spirit of and truth. So, we have how did Christianity change so much and become exactly the opposite of what it was supposed to be? The first 2 people to betray Jesus or hijack his movement were Peter and Paul, still considered the main apostles by the church. So we have Peter and Paul. Plum, 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 plum. And of course, I've written this in 2010, and my other research from Barterman and others only started after 10 years later, basically speaking. So it's very, very basic here. But Paul changed everything. And, this is the situation. Until now, do we have questions or mention, elaborations?
No, it's clear.
Did you know anything about this kind of stuff?
No.
Do
I know in parts, like, how this
Ah.
things came up when we discussed in past. So this is more elaboration of that,
yeah.
I would say.
Do you think this information is useful for Hindus?
Yes, but I have another aspect onto this is like when we go, if we talk about any normal Christian, when somebody goes through this, let's say a Hindu reads all this, he would start hitting all the Christians and look all of them with the same eye. And I would say almost 90 to 95% of Christians might not be knowing all this, and they are just normal human beings busy in their daily routine.
Oh, but
and
that
all,
that
and they
applies
don't-
to everyone. Applies to Muslims. Applies to
Yes,
Hindus.
yes,
Applies to everyone.
So-
And the point is that by declaring yourself a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim, you are supporting the ideology, even if you don't know anything about the ideology. But while Hinduism doesn't require its followers to impose any political supremacy, at least until Modi. I don't know, but but not originally. The Christianity and Islam are actually intolerant as doctrines. So there is a big difference. Between dharma and adharma. Okay. Now dharma supports the coexistence of different people. Okay. So dharma is based on honesty, compassion, tolerance, detachment from the duality, simplicity. You don't need to have the entire power and everything. But all Abrahamic ideologies are based on the fact that God promised His chosen people to be the owners of the planet. And by the order of God, they should not tolerate any other religion. So you see, it's not the same position. I have been mentioning, I've been commenting that the more Hindus learn about their own religion, their own scriptures and history and everything, the better people they become by following their religion. On the other hand, the opposite is true for the Abrahamics. The more Christians and Muslims learn about their scriptures and their history, the worse people they become. So the point is, let's say, for example, communism. Okay. If someone says, "Oh, I'm a communist," but I'm a normal person, I don't go around, doing the Naxalite things, but you're supporting them. You see the difference? This is why we need to actually know what is what, which is which. The problem is not that the Christians believe in Jesus and the Muslims believe in Muhammad. The problem is what Jesus said and what Muhammad said and did. In Hinduism, Krishna didn't say, go and kill everybody who doesn't agree with me. They didn't say that. There's nothing in Hinduism like that. Or Buddhism, or Sikhism, or what to speak of Jainism. But Christianity and Islam, they're actually saying that. They have been saying that for several centuries. And they have done it. They're still doing it. So if they just, believe theoretically, they prayed to Jesus, okay, well, they could pray to Mickey Mouse. What's the difference? Why? You get angry because someone is praying to Mickey Mouse or to Zeus or Odin or anyone? No. Well, they can pray to whatever they want. But if they say that, according to my religion, I have to kill anyone who is not from my religion, how you're going to accept that?
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. In the Bible, even in the New Testament, God approves of slavery. Right? What to speak of the Quran. Yeah. So what does that mean? You're not just praying to Jesus or to Allah, you're becoming a slaver. You're attacking people and making them slaves or killing them because of your religion, not because of their religion, because of your religion. This is, the common, widespread, misunderstanding. They think that abrahamics kill people who do not follow their religion. The problem, abrahamics kill other people because this is required by the Abrahamic religion. So they don't kill the Hindus because of the religion of the Hindus. They kill Hindus because of the religion of, the Muslims or whatnot. You see, there is a big difference there. I don't know. I hope I'm not offending anyone. But, these are the facts.
But okay, we can say about Islam that now still these things are happening, but very rarely at least I have not seen in Christianity that this sort of.
Oh yeah, you have not seen Christianity because Christianity lost practically all their power 500 years ago. But they're getting it back in the United States, for example. So that's the trick. Abrahamic religions are perfectly okay as long as their followers do not have the political, financial, or social power to practice their religion. So they're nice. They're nice. Muslims were very nice until, for some time, from the end of the First World War until the end of the Second World War. from 1918 to 1947, they were, quiet because they had no power. Britain had destroyed the Ottoman Empire. So, the Khilafat movement took shelter in India. And the Khilafat movement was the original freedom, independence movement for India. And Hindus didn't participate to the freedom fight for independence. Very marginally. Even Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was working for the Khilafat movement. So, what happened at the partition when, actually it was the Muslims who won the freedom fight, and that's why Britain gave them the Pakistan. Because they were still a relative minority in India, but they wanted their own state where they could be Pakistan. They could be Pakka Muslims. West Pakistan and East Pakistan, right? And as soon as they had power, look what they've done. And Christians are the same. As long as they don't have the political power, they're nice. They have to be nice. They cannot bite. They are not big enough, so they're quiet. But they want numbers, because when they have numbers, sufficient numbers, then they get the political power, and then they make the laws, and then they, control the laws and the magistrates and the finance and everything, right? I don't know. Is that? Can you see how it's working?
Mhm.
And the problem is that in India, people are still thinking, oh, the Westerners are the problem, the British. Recently, I had an encounter on Quora with someone who was insisting, and he wanted to discuss, how bad were the British in condemning Savarkar, for being a Hindu patriot. Savarkar, what did he do? What did he do? Not much. The British didn't give a fig about the Hindus. They were not, they just wanted to squeeze India. So it's not that they supported, they wanted to punish Savarkar because he was a Brahmin. Seriously, Brahmins? They were brown sahibs. They were the ones who supported the British Raj. The Brahmins. Right? So, and because I was trying to tell you that, he got so angry, he got so offensive, and then I said, sorry, I'm not interested in doing the discussion, and I blocked him, and he opened 2 more profiles just to continue. So this is a problem. As long as Hindus are just, focusing on the wrong enemies. They don't know what they're talking about. They are just completely distracted. They don't know what they're dealing with. Hindus should read the Bible. Should study the Bible. So, this is interesting. This is important. But, I don't know if it is interesting for people or not. We can see, maybe. I don't want to push much, for anything, but definitely, yeah. I think we should know. Like, for example, you see these big files here, Popes Only and Papato. That is a Word file, RTF, so it's not very complicated software. But one is 400, almost 500 kilobyte. So it's a lot of stuff. And the whole history of Christianity. It's all in Italian. And it was a website that was eliminated. It was, and I copied everything before they killed the website. This is the list of the popes. And some popes were only there for a few months and then they were killed. Killing each other like anything. And we have the councils. The first Council of Nicaea, 325. And we have the Second Council of Nicaea in 787. So, yeah. So this is the history timeline. So, it was a very good website, actually. A lot of very good information. This was, let me see when it was, date. 2008. 2008, last time I modified it by adding, working on it. So it's a lot of stories. Okay. First posting of Abrahamic ideologies, the original sin. Okay, yeah, like that. So the quotes about Abrahamics. What are the Semitic? Actually, Abrahamic. At that time, I was calling them Abrahamic religions in 2011, but actually they're not. They shouldn't be called Semitic. They should be called Abrahamic. So we have another interesting guy in the Italian scenario is Mauro Biglino. I don't know if you heard about him. Mauro Biglino was a translator for the Vatican publications, and he did pretty much something similar to Bart Ehrman. The only thing that he actually became affiliated, became a follower of Zecharia Sitchin, and these extraterrestrial, like ancient astronauts things. But he knows Hebrew, and he has written several books explaining that the so-called God of the Bible is not God. He's a bad guy. But this is what the Gnostics were saying already in the beginning, already 2,000 years ago and more. This is a description of Yahweh. That was called Yaldabot. It's a dragon. It's a reptilian. It's a naga. Okay, so yeah, it's the great Asura of Zarathustra, Zoroaster. So, yeah. Okay, I mean, as long as they just worship them without killing any innocent people, or animals, it's okay, not a big problem. Especially not killing innocent people. Thank you very much. But they have done a lot of that, killing innocent people. So yeah, not really enthusiastic. I think more people should know about it. In the West, it's getting stronger. Like in the United States, presently the census is less than 50% of the people in the United States are considering themselves Christians. And in the other nations in the West, is sometimes even less. Even in Italy and Spain, there are big movements to detach from Christianity. Recently, the president of the Italian Hindu Union, who's national Italian descent, he said that there are 200,000 Hindus in Italy, and more than 80% are Italian people. Local, from Italian descent, they're not from India or Bangladesh or whatever. They're not of Indian race, not Indian DNA, Italian DNA. So, yeah, I think that Indian people should be more aware of these things. So, they start seeing what is actually happening in the world and what we need to do. Because it's happening. It's happening. So, I don't know. You want to say something more for conclusion? Because actually we went, past 15 minutes past the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to know all these things in the past so that
Okay, I
we are
don't know
aware
if
that.
people are, you think that it could be interesting for people to learn more about this stuff, or you think it'd be a bad idea?
It is good to know, but yeah, like the listener has to be very intelligent so that he doesn't get dragged away, that it's not something like sort of communal hatred we are trying to convey. It's something for you to know so that you are prepared. But it is not
We
for
don't
you to
want
hate
to
somebody.
go into a holy war, but we should know if it happens, like Yudhishthira is called Ajatashatru, but he found himself on the battlefield of Kurukshetra having to fight. So, yeah. Okay. Sudeep, thank you so much for your participation and support.
Thank you for your time and explanations.
I hope it was useful. We can discuss on WhatsApp and think about next meetings. Okay.
Sure.
Jai Shri Radhe.
Jai Jagan. Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Jagan.